Good morning. So, what is displayed on the board is synopsis of what we discussed yesterday. Yesterday, we did not talk about any specific topic, but we talked about the subject, we talked about the syllabus, we talked about the nature of the questions asked. We also talked about our approach towards the subject. Is it okay? And some other aspects which are associated with the subject, which is generally not understood when we adopt popular perceptions related to the subject. Is it okay? Now today we have to, and we also made a plan for us which we are going to follow, which is based on themes. Is it okay? And we identified a theme in transformation of India towards modernity, that is colonialism. And as a part of the context and the conquest of India by England, we have to start with the 18th century today. Is it okay with everyone? So now let us start, and we are going to write something in the class, that is class notes. What our experiences suggest that is the best way, because this approach is required in competitive exams. In academics, approach is different. There we work for broadening of intellectual horizon, discussion and your participation. If that approach is followed here simply, and if nothing is dictated in the class, after 10 to 15 days, everything is gone. So you need concrete notes. You need concrete notes with you to revise, to consolidate. Is it okay? That's why we cannot do away with the dictation method. Is it okay with everyone? So let us start now. Just make a heading, right? The history of modern India, some introductory, and then we can proceed. The history of modern India, modern India. At the history of modern India, the history of modern India, we are writing now as a part of the text. The history of modern India involves, involves, the history of modern India involves a transition of India, transition of India towards, transition of India towards modernity, transition of India towards modernity under different impulses, under different impulses, under different impulses and in different phases, under different impulses and in different phases, and in different phases, which appears to be a long-term historical process, which appears to be a long-term historical process which is unfolding itself, which is unfolding, a long-term historical process which is unfolding itself even today, long-term historical process which is unfolding itself even today, with different degrees of success, with different degrees of success in different walks of the Indian life, with different degrees of success in the different walks, walks, in the different walks of the Indian life. Some important phases can be identified. Some important phases can be identified in form of the phase of colonialism, in form of the phase of colonialism, the phase of colonialism, which is not only a modern phenomenon, the phase of colonialism, which is not only a modern phenomenon, but also associated with the beginning of some modern changes, also associated with the beginning of some modern changes, in the Indian life, despite their distorted nature, distorted distorted, despite their distorted nature. Is it okay? And the phase of nationalism, as the Indian national movement, and the phase of nationalism, as the Indian national movement is not only perceived as the Indian national movement is not only perceived as a movement for political liberation, not only perceived as a movement for the political liberation, but also as a movement for socio-economic transformations. This itself can be a question, but also as a movement for socio-economic transformations on modern lines, socio-economic transformations on the modern lines. Is it okay with everyone? So what we have talked about, colonialism and nationalism. Colonialism responsible for some changes, they were distorted, they were manipulated to suit the interest of the England. All these limitations were there with the changes. But one thing remains true, that their nature was modern. Is it okay? And that's why we accept the role of colonialism in transforming India towards the modernity. And the second aspect is nationalism. Indian national movement, not only a movement for a political liberation, this itself can be a question. I hope you understand this. Is it okay? It was also a movement for a socio-economic and cultural transformation. I will give you one example to support this. You must have heard of the revolt of 1857. This is very important event in the history of Indian nationalism, in the history of Indian national movement, and is also considered as a very important watershed, which brought out some changes, not only in the nature of colonialism, but also in the nature of Indian nationalism. And you must be knowing that it is understood differently. I'm talking about the revolt of 1857 as an example of what we have just written. When we have the revolt by the sepoys of the Bengal army, you must be knowing, and even if you don't know, it does not matter, because we are going to discuss it. The Bengal intelligentsia was not in support of the rebels, and it was more sympathetic to whom? To the British. What was the reason? Can If we consider the revolt of 1857 as a national revolt, can we consider the Bengal intelligentsia as anti-national? Why? We can. If we accept the limited view of nationalism and limited view of what was being attempted by the enlightened Indians. Is it okay? The situation is like this, that they did not share the vision of India. They thought that the rebels are going to follow a reactionary policy. They are the people who are more interested in restoration, not interested in regeneration. Is it okay? So if the old system is revived, of course it was not perceived by the Bengal intelligentsia as beneficial to India and the Indians. And that's why they did not support the rebels. So both were nationalists. The rebels were nationalists because they were fighting for the political liberation, and the Bengal intelligentsia was also nationalist because it had a larger vision of modernizing India. And in modernizing India, it accepted the role of colonialism, it accepted the role of the British rulers, because the British nation at that time was at what we can say at the forefront of modernity. Is it okay with everyone? And any association with that nation was considered as helpful in modernizing the India. Is it okay with everyone? So right from the beginning, Indian national movement, when it was in its incipient stage, our early nationalist leaders of Bengal, they were interested not only in political liberation. Had that been only the case, they would have supported the rebels of the 1857. They were also interested in transformation of India on modern lines. Is it okay with everyone? So and let us do one thing. I will give you some questions in the class, and I will be happy if you write them. Is it okay? That is just for practice. How many of you are going to attempt this year? None of you. So please, you don't do this answer writing practice now. It's okay. The rest of you who are planning for 2020, because writing is the only way we can learn. And despite all the changes, technological changes and whatever, your evaluation is still based on your writing skill. Is it okay? So I will give you some questions in the course of these classes. You can attempt them. I am here. If I am not available, of course I am available, but if you feel shy, it happens at times. We are not very free in getting our answers checked, because when we write something, we seek appreciation. No? This is human nature. But when teachers criticize them, apparently we accept it's okay. Sir, who will teach us if not you? But from inside, it is something like it, beta bahut smart banta hai, more smart, something like this. It happens. So, of course, I am ready for that. So, keep on writing questions. Answers will be available not in one paragraph, but these questions are going to give you perspectives. And nowadays, questions are based on perspectives. So, here starts the first question, right? Yes?
So, what we write is a crafted answer. So, what do you expect us to write? To write whatever like we know? Or to
see, crafted answer. What do you mean by crafted answer?
So, we take time to write answers. We do research and then we write.
Okay, do one thing. Start writing. Whatever you know, start writing. If you know one point related to a topic, at this stage of your preparation, try to present that point. Is it okay? In that answer, and consider that answer to be complete. With time, with increasing knowledge, with increasing awareness, you will be capable of adding more points. And not only more points, but also modifying the existing point. So don't make it an event. Answer writing is not an event, that in one go you are going to write a perfect answer. Is it clear? Make it a process. Make it a process. Is it okay? And suppose, if you are not able to recall anything, simply write the difficulties. Writing is so important in this preparation. Simply write the difficulties. I have been trying to write answers for this question for the last half an hour. I have not been able to write even a single line due to the following reasons. A, lack of studies. B, lack of consolidation. I hope you understand what I am trying to communicate. Writing is so important. So don't wait for the perfect moment that will come to your life one day when you will be writing the final words. No word is final. So don't expect perfect. In fact, search of perfection is quite inhibiting in nature. Is it okay? So we keep on reading, we keep on reading. We keep on waiting for the day, the golden day. That never comes. And in the process, the vital time is lost. So make it a point that you are going to write, irrespective of the fact that you know or you don't know. Is it okay? On the basis of your common sense also, we can write few lines. And if you, I told you that writing is so important that you can simply write your difficulties. Because that kind of writing is also associated with your increasing self-awareness. And this entire exam is about self-awareness. You must be knowing that knowledge, of course, is important. But don't you think that by the evening of this exam day, we all have the answers? By the evening, we all have the answers. We have spent time and we study and we do a lot of labor in the examination halls. We face difficulties. We move out of the examination halls with a frustrated mind. But by the evening, we all have the answers. Why? Because our learning was latent. What is our objective here? Our objective is to enable you to get the answer in the examination hall, not outside it. Is it okay? And not in the examination hall, but during very limited time, that is 5 to 7 minutes that we allocate to a particular answer. That is your primary task. It is not about knowledge, we all know. Those who qualify this exam, those who don't qualify this exam. No? In the evening, if you ask those people who have appeared, who have written mains, almost all of them have answers. And if they have done anything wrong in the examination hall, they are aware of it. Okay, now this question was like this, I have made some blunders. And our heart starts suggesting, you have done something wrong, you have done something wrong. We need to have our answers within those 5 to 6 minutes. That is the difference we have to create. And that will be a product of rehearsal, rehearsal and rehearsal. Is it okay with everyone? So start writing. Is it okay? Writing will tell you what to learn, how to learn. Is it okay with everyone? It is not that you are making your learning independent of your writing and you are waiting for a moment when you will be able to write the perfect words. That moment will never come. In fact, such moments are simply myths. They don't exist. Throughout your life, you keep on writing, and if you are a good writer, on your deathbed, you can feel some frustration because you can come across a better writing, instance of better writing, and you will die in regret that throughout our life, my life, I could not learn even how to write. So it's a process. Is it okay? Don't try to make it an event. And the process starts now, in history at least. Is it okay? So write a question, try to write it, and subject to further enrichment, subject to further refinement. Is it okay? Do you think you may also allocate some separate space for this kind of questions? Is it okay? 2 to 3 pages, no, you can separately allocate for these questions. Is it okay? So right, do you think that the Indian national movement, do you think that the Indian national movement was, do you think that the Indian national movement was only a movement for political liberation, only a movement for the political liberation of the nation, political liberation of the nation? Is it okay? I will give you some hints even at this stage. I have just given you the example of the revolt of 1857. That was the early days of Indian nationalism. And in the later days, there was a session of Indian National Congress which took place in the city of Lahore in the year 1929. And there, the president of the session was Jawaharlal Nehru. And he declared the goal of Indian national movement to be the Purna Swaraj, complete independence. What does it mean, complete independence? He himself defined the idea of complete independence as not only political independence but also socio-economic restructuring of the Indian society. Of course, in his view, it was to happen on socialist lines, but even socialist lines were part of the modern lines. Is it okay with everyone? Socialism is part of modern thinking. So from beginning till end, we find that Indian nationalism was not only concerned about a political liberation, it was also concerned about a socio-economic transformation on the modern lines. I hope I got the hint. Is it okay? Now, let us proceed further. So what we have written, that the history of India is transformation of India towards modernity under different impulses in different phases, like colonialism and nationalism. Is it okay? Right, in this context, keep on writing in the same. Resume your writing now. Resume your writing of the main line. Okay, in this context, we can also mention, in this context, we can also mention, in this context, we can also mention the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution. A legacy of both the Indian Constitution, a legacy of both the colonialism and the nationalism. A legacy of both the colonialism and the nationalism, which is perceived not only as, not only as a political revolution. This itself can be a question. Not only as a political revolution, but also as a social revolution. And despite all its limitations, related to implementation, not related to ideals, and despite all its limitations related to its implementation, has been working as a device or as an instrument, to transform India into a modern nation. Is it okay with everyone? So this was basically an introductory kind of a paragraph which was about all the three phases associated with the history of modern India: colonialism, nationalism, and post-independence. Is it okay with everyone? Now change your paragraph and write. At the beginning of colonialism, we are going to be more specific to the first. The beginning of colonialism can be traced back to the beginning of colonialism can be traced back to the middle of the 18th century. Can be traced back to the middle of the 18th century. A century perceived as a phase of a transition a century perceived as a phase of a transition from what was medieval, phase of a transition from what was medieval to what came to be perceived as the modern, to what came to be perceived as the modern. Is it okay with everyone? Right? This century provided the overall context. This century provided the overall context. This century provided the overall context for the British conquest of India, for the British conquest of India, for the British conquest of India, which appears to be a long-term process, which appears to be a long-term process, a long-term process, no, for almost a century, long-term process, during which the British East India Company, took advantages of the socio-political weaknesses, took advantages of the socio-political weaknesses of the Indian subcontinent, socio-political weaknesses of the Indian subcontinent, and ensured its success, and ensured, E-N-S-U-R-E-D, and ensured its success not only against the Indian powers, not only against the Indian powers, but also against the European rivals, but also against its European rivals, So company fought battles against its European rivals and also against the Indian powers. Now companies struggle with Indian powers. This is going to give us some important topics, particularly in terms of the company's political and military relations with Indian powers. No, that is an issue that we are going to take up separately. But what about the Europeans? Of course, it's a fight against the Europeans. All fights are not important, but it's fight with the French, which is going to give us a topic, Anglo-French rivalry. We also call it the Carnatic Wars. Is it okay? But before we talk about companies' fight with the French particularly and other European rivals, context-wise, we can also, in the coming paragraph, talk about the advent of Europeans in Indian subcontinent. Now the context is ready. We have just talked about the Europeans. Is it okay? So, right. Now change your paragraph. At the advent of Europeans into the Indian subcontinent, in the modern age, had started with, so we are moving beyond 18th century now, a little earlier, had started with the arrival of the Portuguese, with the arrival of the Portuguese towards the end of the 15th century. Towards the end of the 15th century. Here some important PT details are there. Some facts are there. Who, when, that is a specific year, where. So you must have heard of Vasco da Gama. And you must have heard of, in European history, geographical discoveries which involved not only the discovery of continents, new continents in the new world, but also the discovery of new trade routes or new trade routes. One such route was discovered or found between India and the Europe. Cape of Good Hope, you must be knowing. So generally Vasco da Gama is given credit for discovery of India, but it was not discovery of India. India was known to Europeans for ancient times. No? So in fact it was a discovery of new trade route to India. Is it okay? Which was part of a new culture that was taking shape in Europe due to Renaissance, due to other developments. Is it okay? Modern scientific discoveries and all. So here we can take note of these facts in the same paragraph. Is it okay? Right? It was the famous Portuguese adventurer. It was the famous Portuguese adventurer Vasco da Gama, VASCO. It was the famous Portuguese adventurer Vasco da Gama, who is given credit for discovering a new trade route or route, ROUTE, a new trade route to India, bypassing the Mediterranean world, You must have heard of Mediterranean world, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Persian Gulf. Is it okay? So bypassing the Mediterranean world through Atlantic Ocean. Then right, he reached Calicut, more Indianized, Calicut, but we can rely upon these traditional spellings. Is it okay? So he reached Calicut in the year 1498. He reached Calicut in the year of 1498 and was welcomed by the local ruler, Zamorin, Zamorin, local ruler Zamorin. Is it okay? Then he left, then some others came. But more important is the arrival of Alfonso de Albuquerque. So we can ignore others. We can now focus upon Alfonso de Albuquerque. He was appointed in the year 1509 as governor of not the Portuguese areas, because at that time we don't have Portuguese areas. But of course they had started dominating the Arabian Sea. Is it okay? So he was appointed as the governor of the Portuguese affairs in the East. Now this governor of Portuguese affairs in the East succeeded in occupying Goa in 1510. And this occupation of Goa, of course, buttressed the Portuguese opposition, and Goa emerged as a major Portuguese center, and Portuguese continued to rule Goa till 1961. So we can easily see that the Portuguese were the first to arrive and also the last to leave. That's okay. And not only Goa, but some other places were also occupied by them. In fact, Bombay was also earlier, a Goan Portuguese possession. Bombay, then we have Salsette, Basin, Daman, Diu. On the eastern coast we have Hooghly. All these areas were Portuguese areas. But finally Portuguese lost all their places to other European powers. Retained only three. That was Goa, Daman and Diu. Daman and Diu where? Gujarat. And Goa we know the location. Now Bombay was given to, in fact with time there was some settlement between the Portuguese and the British, and as a part of that settlement Bombay was given in dowry to Charles II, the British king, and Charles II handed it over to the East India Company. So finally East India Company came to possess the island of Bombay. Is it okay? But earlier Bombay too had been a Portuguese possession. Is it okay? So here we can add a few more lines, right? But the political rise,
Sir, we just wrote that Vasco da Gama was given the credit of discovering a new trade route to India. Sir, was it actually India or was it East India?
his question is that we have just given credit to Vasco da Gama that he discovered India or a new trade route to India. His question is that whether it was India or Eastern India, no?
East of the world, because actually
East of the world, discovery of the East. No, even before Vasco da Gama, we have many adventurers. So East was known to them. It was not discovery of the East. East and West and connection we find since ancient times. No? In fact, the first historian of the European tradition, Herodotus, was aware of India. He has written about India and has mentioned India as a strange land with gold digging ants, A-N-T, not A-U-N-T. With gold digging ants. Is it okay? And Indians have been mentioned as what? As strange creatures. Their ears, so long, so large, that they used it as what? Bed sheets and what? Blankets, something like this. So the East, particularly India, has always been a strange land for the European observers. And that tradition still continues. So what we can say that it was simply discovery of a new trade route to India. It was not discovery of the East. East-West connection can be traced back to even ancient days. Is it okay?
according to the treaty of that one treaty is there, and as per that the world was divided into two parts. One was given to
It was their affairs. It was their affairs. We are not concerned with that. But how can we forget Alexander? Alexander, who invaded India, 326 BC. Is it okay? He came up with some historians. These historians have also mentioned about India. We have Megasthenes, the author of Indica. Indica is a work entirely based on India. So it was not, again, it was not discovery of the East. East was known to them. It was simply because of the Arab domination of the Mediterranean world and the old trade routes to India who had started creating troubles for the Europeans or the traders and merchants of Venice, Genoa. These are the ancient Italian cities, trading cities. That we find some attempts on the part of the Europeans to find new routes to India and the East. Is it okay? Yes. Pardon? We cannot say first or new. Here we can say it was new trade route. Is it okay? How can we say first or second? Trade, sea, ocean routes are what? Not like modern routes. They are not constructed. They are simply discovered. Is it okay? So we cannot say first or last because these routes were not built. They were simply discovered. Is it okay? So, is it okay with everyone? So now let us proceed further. We have just mentioned what? But the political rise of the Portuguese in the East, started with the appointment of Alfonso de Albuquerque. Alfonso de Albuquerque as the governor of the Portuguese affairs. Alfonso de Albuquerque as the governor of the Portuguese affairs in 1509. In 1509, who captured Goa? In 1510. Who captured Goa in 1510, which had been under the possession of Bijapur, one of the Dakkani Sultanates, which had been under the possession of Bijapur. In fact, even in earlier days, Goa had been a bone of contention between not only the Dakkani Sultanates, but also before them, the Bahmani kingdom. Some of you may be knowing, Bahmani kingdom was a very famous medieval kingdom in the Dakkan. And further south, we have the Vijayanagar Empire. And the history of Vijayanagar and Bahmani was a history of mutual rivalry and mutual conflict. Many wars took place between these two powers, explained differently. One explanation is based on geostrategic considerations. And as a part of geostrategic, we consider the Konkan coast, the southern Konkan, not the northern Konkan, with its important port of Goa. So Goa was strategically very important place. It was also associated with the import of horses required by both the powers, Vijayanagar and Bahmani. So if the question is which ancient port or which port in the south was important for the import of horses, particularly in the medieval age, that port was Goa. Is it okay? So strategically important. And this strategic port now came to be occupied by the Portuguese. Is it okay with everyone? The man was Alfonso de Albuquerque and the year was 1510. Is it okay? Right? The Portuguese are known for introducing a new element of force, a new element of force, F-O-R-C-E, new elements of force in the Eastern trade, trade, and relying upon their superior navy and relying upon their superior naval power or superior navy and relying upon their superior naval power or superior navy, they forced the Arab and the Indian merchants or traders. They forced the Arab and the Indian merchants. They forced the Arab and the Indian merchants out of the eastern trade. Out of the eastern trade, and started issuing licenses. Started issuing licenses known as cartages. Have you ever heard of cartages? Licenses issued by the Portuguese, and started issuing licenses known as cartages to them. If you don't obtain license from the Portuguese, you cannot trade. No, to them at higher costs. They also occupied some other strategic locations. Names are not important. In the eastern waters. They also occupied some other strategic locations in the eastern waters and started forcing the ships of other countries. Started forcing the ships of other countries, or other nations, no, to pass through Goa. So you have to come to Goa to pass through Goa, where heavy taxes were levied upon them. Heavy taxes were levied upon them. Other aspects are not important for us. No, how they treated the native subjects. No, a policy of religious persecution, also a policy of intermarrying, particularly started by Alfonso de Albuquerque. These are the issues which are not of immediate concern, so we can simply ignore. This commercial aspect is more important. So remember Carthages, remember their trade, a policy that was based on force. Is it okay with everyone? And superior military might. Remember the occupation of Goa, remember the person, remember the first person. Is it okay? Now, keep on writing in the same. Right, the Portuguese maintained their domination of the eastern waters for almost a century. The Portuguese maintained their domination. The Portuguese maintained their domination of the eastern waters for almost a century. That is the entire 16th century, for almost a century. But in the 17th century, with the arrival of other European powers, and their trading companies, other European powers and their trading companies, there was there was a dilution. There was a dilution. Dilution. There was a dilution of their control and influence. Their control and influence. And the Portuguese were particularly challenged by the Portuguese were particularly challenged by the Dutch. The Portuguese were particularly challenged by the Dutch, who were interested more in the Spice Islands, who were interested more in the so-called Spice Islands of the Southeast Asia. A Spice Island of the Southeast Asia. And India remained only a part of their peripheral activities. And India remained only a part of their peripheral activities. India remained only a part of their peripheral activities. Is it okay? So Portuguese, right? But they succeeded, keep on writing in the same. But they succeeded in bringing an end to. But they succeeded in bringing an end to the Portuguese monopoly. The Portuguese monopoly of the eastern waters. Before their own position came to be threatened by, before their own position came to be threatened by the British East India Company, in due course of a time, by the British East India Company in due course of a time. So who brought an end to the Portuguese monopoly of the eastern waters? A, the East India Company. B, the French East India Company. C, the Dutch. So the answer is C, the Dutch. Is it okay? And see here, we have some, when we talk about other, that is, Portuguese are more important because they were the first. East India Company is more important because we know that it is closely associated with Indian history. French are important because of being the most serious rivals of the East India Company. Is it okay? Dutch people were not more interested in India, but still they had their settlements on the eastern coast as well as on the western coast. Those settlements are not important for us. Then here we can write their names in order also. That who were the first? Portuguese were the first. After Portuguese we have the British. 1600, 31st January, December 1600, the East India Company was given a royal charter, Queen Elizabeth, that we accept as the date of the arrival of the East India Company. And East India Company was given in 1600 a monopoly on the trade in the eastern waters. So it was not specific to India, it was specific to the eastern waters. That is monopoly with China also, monopoly with all types of trade with the east. Is it okay? Then in 1602 we have the Dutch East India Company, whose role we have just mentioned in eliminating the Portuguese domination of the eastern waters. But that credit does not belong to the British, it belongs to the Dutch. Is it okay? Then after the Dutch, we have the Danes. And after the Danes, we have the French. So the French were the last. So who were the first? The Portuguese. Who were the last? the French. Just remember this sequence. Nothing more than this is required for us. Is it okay? Forget about the years, forget about the settlements, specific settlements in a specific years. All these details now no longer important for us. Is it okay with everyone? So here in the same paragraph we can write that after Portuguese, we find the arrival. After Portuguese, we are adding this point. After Portuguese, we find the arrival of the British East India Company, in bracket write 1600, 1600. The Dutch, whose role already mentioned, the Dutch 1602, the Dutch 1602, the Danes, no, they were in 1620s, they are not very important, so forget about their dates. And then the French, 1664. The arrival of the French company was in 1664, the last major European player in the Indian subcontinent. Is it okay with everyone? So this is the chronological order of their arrival. Is it okay with everyone? Now change your paragraph. We have dealt with this issue. East India Company and its career we are going to explore later on. But some facts are there which we can still mention. By the way, who was the first British to visit India? Sir Thomas Roe. Captain Hawkins. Even before him, we have a person who spent 7 years in India. John Milton Hall. No, he was the first. So they can ask you the order of the foreign travelers, and particularly those people who were associated with England. I hope you understand, because rest of the history is about what? The British domination of India. Is it okay? So forget about the Dutch and what they did, but we are going to be a little more specific about the British East India Company. Even before talking about its conflict with the foreign powers and conflict with the native powers, some facts and details related to it which may be important for a PT. Is it okay? So keep on writing, just change your paragraph and write. It is still part of the foreign companies. At Sir John Mildenhall. Sir John Mildenhall is accepted as the first British trader. So he visited in his individual capacity. The first British trader in India. And no need to mention that he has spent 7 years in India. Is it okay? Simply no. First British trader in India. But the British trading activities started on a more organized scale. The British trading activities were organized on started on a more organized scale with the foundation of the East India Company, with the foundation of the East India Company, and granting of a monopoly on the eastern eastern commerce or monopoly on the eastern trade or on the eastern commerce by by a charter, by a charter of the British Parliament, by a charter of the British Parliament in 1600, by a charter of the British Parliament in 1600, to it, that is monopoly to it, for 15 years, 15. So initially this monopoly was for 15 years. Later on we have a system that in which for 20 years, not for 15 years. Is it okay? But a lot of changes took place, from 1600 to the period which are more important for us, when we have the battles like Plassey and Buxar. So we are not interested in all the charters, but in few charters in the later days. Is it okay? But initially the charter acts were being passed for 15 years. And what was the objective of the charters? To renew and redefine the commercial rights given to the East India Company. And what was this right? It was a right related to the monopoly on the trading activities of the East. Is it okay with everyone? Then right, the East India Company sent its agent. The East India Company sent its agent, Hawkins. So Hawkins was agent of the East India Company. The East India Company sent its agent Hawkins to the court of the Mughal emperor. To the court of the Mughal emperor. Can you tell me the name? Jahangir. Court of the Mughal emperor Jahangir. In which year? 1608. 1608. This is more authentic date. Is it okay? 1608. Who succeeded in convincing Jahangir? Who succeeded in convincing Jahangir to grant a permission, to establish a British factory, at Surat. So Jahangir permitted. And what were these factories? They were not manufacturing units. They were simply warehouses to facilitate trade and trading activities. So the East India Company wanted its warehouse at Surat, and it sent Hawkins as its agent to the court of Jahangir, and he succeeded in convincing Jahangir, and Jahangir granted this permission. Okay, go and have your factory at Surat. Is it okay? So right, the British made their first attempt to establish, important question for PT, first attempt to establish their factory at Surat. In which year? 1609. Their factory at Surat in 1609. But this attempt was frustrated. It was not successful. But this attempt was frustrated due to the Portuguese interference. This attempt was frustrated due to the Portuguese interference. And this attempt was frustrated due to the Portuguese interference, which also led to the withdrawal of the royal permission, which also led to the withdrawal of the royal permission, royal permission. No, Mughal-Portuguese relation, very important. In the days of Akbar, we have increasing Portuguese influence in the Mughal court, and that continued even under Jahangir. So the Portuguese were quite influential in the Mughal court, and when the Mughal Emperor Jahangir granted permission to the East India Company to have its factory at Surat, the Portuguese objected to this. And they used their influence in the Mughal court to frustrate this attempt by the British. But in some textbooks, including the old NCRT, we have this date as what? The first factory at Surat. Clear-cut mention that the British established their first factory at Surat in the year 1609. So in this situation, what we can do? I hope you understand this. So we can have some confusing statements in the textbooks because historians, refer to different kind of sources. And history is a discipline in which we can have this kind of differences. So we have to tolerate these differences. And we have to respond to the questions depending upon the requirements of the question and relying upon the language of the question. If examiner is accepting, if the language of the question is suggestive of this fact, that if examiner is accepting 1609 as the date of the foundation of the British factory at Surat, we have no reason to differ with the examiner. Is it okay with everyone? So every year we find some questions whose answers remain ambiguous in UPSC because the experts consult different books. Of course, our accessibility is quite limited, so we should not spoil our time in doing research work. I hope you understand this. Let us develop this wisdom. If the supposition is that examiner has accepted it, suppose if there is no other option more suitable than 1609, and if only few years are mentioned, and in that you have 1609 as the date, accept it, right? Of course, because examiner has accepted it. Is it okay with everyone? So don't forget that here in history, our knowledge is very limited. We are talking about the past. When events took place, none of us was present. And our knowledge is very indirect. So we have many dark patches in history, of which we know nothing. And that's why absolute knowledge is never claimed in history. Is it okay? That is also something very peculiar to this subject. Here we have simply what we can say suppositions or what we can say conjectures. So history is basically not what happened. Yesterday we discussed history is what happened. History is not what would have happened. In fact, history is even not what happened because what happened is not known to us. History is what is supposed to have happened. I hope you understand this. History is what is supposed to have happened, but this supposition is not blind. This supposition is based on some sources. Is it okay? Archaeological, literary, and of course those sources are put to critical examination, and enlightened or what we can say rational interpretations are attempted, but element of subjectivity, element of bias also inherent in the process of historical reconstruction. So that cannot be completely done away with. Is it okay with everyone? And that's why in history we don't have what we can say an absolute body of knowledge on which all historians agree. Of course, there are certain facts and details on which we have general agreement, but interpretations are different. And at times we have disputes related to the facts also. Is it okay? So this is a very complicated process, that is ascertaining historical. So when historians are not trying for absolute knowledge, why should we, the aspirants, strive for having absolute knowledge of the subject? That is not possible. In fact, that knowledge does not exist. Is it okay? So we should be what? Moderately ambitious. I hope you understand this in this matter. Of course, we should find out the truth, but not we are passionate about, historians have failed in this enterprise. Now I am going to discover this fact. That's okay. And we are not going to supplant the observations made by them on the basis of our common sense. Of course, our common sense is important, but we can use our common sense in simplifying the situations, in understanding the situations, not in supplanting the positions taken by them. If historians are saying this, no, I don't agree with this proposition, and I am saying this, and this is what Because I hope understand, it is about expertise. And suppose we can contemplate two types of distance, distance in time and distance in space. There are people who also talk about emotional distance. Nowadays in postmodern age, emotional distance is becoming more and more important. Because physically we are connected now, America and India. We can take flights and in 24 hours we can reach America and everything available at the disposal. So distance in space, distance in time. We can have real time knowledge of what is happening in America. But emotional distance is increasing. Is it okay? So we have two types of distance. Physical distance, or what we can say, temporal. We can still cover this distance that we call physical. We can go to America. Suppose we all visiting America and we have visited without passport. We have come back. And we are now talking about our experiences in America. Do you think that we all are going to give the same version of America? We can have different perceptions. Our priorities are different, our concerns are different. Our socio-ideological locations are different. So we can have as many versions of America, as many visitors. It may be, there can be similarity also. So absolute knowledge does not exist even today. We cannot bridge the gap, the distance which exists in time, but the distance which exists in a space that we can bridge, and we can go to America and we can observe America, first-handed experience of America. But still we are not going to agree a single notion of America. So how can we expect historians to agree upon something which happened in the past when none of them was alive or present? Is it okay? So all these kind of agreements, they exist only in our mind, and all attempts for this kind of agreement is what? Useless exercise, fruitless exercise. If something happens in this class, and if you are asked outside this class what had happened in this class, you can give different versions of what happened in this class. So knowledge is not something which is discovered and found. Knowledge is something which is constructed. Knowledge is something which is constructed, and in construction of the systems of knowledge, we have role of our own biases, our own prejudices, our own socio-ideological locations. And history is a discipline in which we have all these factors playing very important roles. Is it okay with everyone? But of course here the issue is very minor issue, that is related to 1 year. When did the British establish their first factory, and at which a place? So in some books you can find it was Surat in the year 1609. But the situation I have explained, it was just their first attempt. They could not establish due to the resistance, due to the objections made by the Portuguese. Is it okay with everyone? In fact, we can consider the first British factory at Masulipattnam. That was in 1611. Masulipattnam was part of Golconda, one of the succession estates of the Bahmani kingdom and one of the sultanates of the Deccan. Is it okay? So, right, their first factory came to be established at Masulipattnam. Their first factory came to be established. Their first factory came to be established at Masulipattnam, Masulipattnam, at Masulipattnam, on the eastern coast, as a part of, which was part of the Golconda kingdom, Golconda kingdom, Golkunda, Golconda kingdom. And see, the ruler of Golconda is also known for one more reason. It was 1911. A little later, that is in 1611, in 1632. Of course, meanwhile, the company was active also in the north. But since we are talking about Masulipattnam and Golconda, we can mention this. A farman. Farman was a royal order. Farman, royal order. Nishan is also used. Nishan is a term which is used for the order of princes. So if a prince is ordering something, that was called Nishan. Is it okay? And if the king is ordering, that was called a farman. Is it okay? So the East India Company received a farman, that is from the king of Golconda, in which year? 1632. And that is called the Golden Farman. I hope you understand. Golden for whom? Golden for the East India Company. Its implications were very important for the company. And the company was allowed to establish its factories throughout the Golconda kingdom, even before the Mughals permitted, a little later than what they obtained permission from the Mughals. Is it okay? So context wise you can mention this, right? The ruler of Golconda is also known for, the ruler of Golconda is also known for granting permission to establish factories, throughout the kingdom. In the year 1632, very important gain for the company, in the year 1632, and the royal order granting the permission came to be known as, and the royal order granting the permission came to be known as the Golden Farman. Meanwhile, the company had continued with its efforts in the Mughal court, for trading privileges and the British king, it means king and the company in collision, and the British king James I, James I sent Sir Thomas Roe, a more famous one, no? And the British king James I sent Sir Thomas Roe as his ambassador to the Mughal court, with a special mission to facilitate a commercial treaty, with the company, company. So I hope you understand the difference between Hawkins and row. Hawkins was an agent of the company, a servant of the company. But Sir Thomas Roe was ambassador of the British Crown. It means Crown right from the very beginning was interested in the affairs of the company. I hope you understand this. So later on we find a tendency to disown by the Crown what was being done by the company. And you must have heard of this kind of questions, that the British conquered India in a feat of absent-mindedness. Is it okay? These kind of questions are also asked. So remember this point, we can use this point. Is it okay? Right from the very beginning we find a nexus between the company and the Crown. And the Crown cannot disown the activities of the company. And we have some specific instances. One such instance is the sending of Thomas Roe as the royal ambassador to the Mughal court for getting concessions for the East India Company. Is it okay with everyone? We have this kind of questions also at times. Okay, the British conquest of India was accidental. British conquest of India was accidental. It was just an accident, because when the company came, it had no intention to conquer India. It was simply a trading body. It was carrying out its trading activities in India. It confronted, or it came to face some problems, and it devised, or it improvised rather, some strategies to confront those problems, and in the process emerged as the political master of the Indian subcontinent. So it was totally an unintentional affair. I hope you understand this. This is a claim made by them. How justified they are in making this claim, we are going to scrutinize a little later. Because suppose, if I am beaten by you, don't think of it, ever. Is it okay? But suppose, I am beaten by you. Suppose I am beaten by you. Don't try, don't even think of this. Is it okay? At the gate of vision. At times the students are, forget about this. We are still living in India and teachers are widely respected. No? And we have this tradition of Guru Shishya, you must be knowing. Guru Shishya. So this is in lighter vein. I know that you are not thinking of beating your teachers. This kind of instances we don't find, unless until something very personal is involved. It's okay. And then, when asked, you say that it was just an accident. Why an accident? Because on that fateful day, you had no intention to come to vision. In fact, you started for CP. And on the way, you met a friend, you came across a friend, and that friend proposed to you, let us visit the office of the vision. And on the gate, you found me and you. So it was an accident. It was an accident. Had you not come to vision on that day, which was unintentional, because you had started for a CP, is it okay? You would not have ended up with this great accomplishment, no? Can this be, or can there be such a simplistic explanation whether this event is accident or not? The fact is that you had been looking for me for the last 2 years. For the last 2 years. Is it okay? You had been making efforts to find me, to catch me. Is it okay? So my being beaten by you at the gate of vision may be an accident, but not the very act of my being beaten by you. Had I been found at the gate of some other institute, there also my fate would have been the same. I hope you understand this. Because you already had intention, mens rea, you must be knowing. So when you have an intention, when you have a particular method to go about that intention or to materialize that objective or that intention, and working upon that strategy, if you realize certain goals, you cannot consider that that goal was what? Unintentional. I hope you understand this. Remember this point. We are going to discuss this in a more elaborate way a little later. Is it okay with everyone? To what extent British conquest of India was accidental, to what extent was in a fit of absent-mindedness, to what extent it was an unintentional act. Is it okay? But one fact here is important, that the Crown and the company, right from the very beginning, we can see instances of their complicity. Is it okay with everyone? And we find, or we can see a nexus, that is Crown was interested in the welfare or in the commercial interest of a private company. The British East India Company was a private company. Is it okay with everyone? So this question is related to larger issues of evolving political economy of the time. Is it okay? That how national interests were conceptualized, what strategies were formulated to fulfill them, and to what extent these joint stock companies belonging to different emerging nations of Europe served as devices or served as instruments in fulfillment of those national objectives. Is it okay with everyone? But that issue is coming. For the time being, we are talking about what was being done by the company and the Crown in the Mughal court. Is it okay? So this Thomas Roe was very influential person, and he convinced Jahangir to what? Grant permission to establish factories, not throughout the empire, but at some strategic places. Some strategic places. Of course, that commercial treaty could not take place, which was there in their mind. But Thomas Roe had remarkable successes on his part. Is it okay? So what we have written? What was the last line? Commercial treaty. Right, Thomas Roe spent 3 years in the Mughal court. 3 years in the Mughal court. He befriended Jahangir, and both started taking hookah together. Is it okay? Yes. You must be knowing Jahangir, a Mughal emperor who had banned tobacco. Jahangir is known for banning a tobacco. Is it okay? So this tobacco cultivation and use of tobacco for the first time under Jahangir. You know, this became so popular that today an average Indian cannot survive without a tobacco. Is it okay? This evil, and Jahangir in his autobiography has mentioned it. This is an evil tendency. I am going to forbid it. It's okay. So the same Jahangir. So right here, Thomas Roe spent 3 years in the Mughal court, in bracket, right? 1615 to 1618. 1615 to 1618. And succeeded in befriending Jahangir. Succeeded in befriending Jahangir. Succeeded in befriending Jahangir. And though the intended commercial treaty could not be materialized, and though the intended commercial treaty could not be materialized, yet some remarkable achievements are credited to Thomas Roe, which also included establishment of British factories at places like Surat. No, that was in 1613, 1613, not in 09. Is it okay? Surat. Bharuch. You may have heard of. Bharuch. Bharuch. Bharuch is a place in Gujarat. Surat. Bharuch. Ahmednagar. 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 So these three, and Agra. And Agra. Agra was the Mughal capital. Is it okay? So these are the early attempts by the company, and for PT purposes these facts may be important. Now company kept on expanding the number of its settlements, number of its factories under different circumstances, in different contexts, in different parts of the country, and from this early